Now, after we had the Switch Lite announced, of course, coming out in a little over 2 months now, September 20th, there was some concerns around different aspects of this system. Not necessarily just if it can dock or not, which of course we know now that it cannot. That seemed to not sit very well with a lot of people. But there are some questions about the durability of the system. Now, I'm not even just talking about if you drop it, will it crack, will it break, how does it feel in the hands, the fact that it's that much lighter, which it's actually a fair amount lighter if you compare it to the Switch, although I guess if you remove the Joy-Cons, it'll be much closer in terms of weight. So if you do that, because it says with controllers attached, it'll feel about what the Lite would feel like. It comes down to one thing that's very interesting, and I see it getting thrown around a lot, and that has to do with the Joy-Con analog stick. So I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about that today and kind of where I'm sitting here with this situation. Now, if you're unaware, the Joy-Con sticks have been known to drift. If you have been fortunate and not run into this, that is great. That is awesome. I'm glad. But there are a lot of people who are currently dealing with this. However, one thing you can count on is I will be taking the Switch Lite apart when it comes out, and I'm specifically going to be looking for how easy it is to replace the joysticks on this thing. So make sure you're subscribed for that, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a like to help out. But I want to talk a little bit about this because this is something that is going to be looked at under a magnifying glass, because let's say you buy a Switch Lite and it's great. You're having a great time with it. But then one day you're playing Link's Awakening and all of a sudden, well, Link just decides to keep running left and you have to kind of fight with it. And then he stops and you're like, okay, everything's good. But then the next day it happens again and it's randomly happening. That seems to be what the deal is with joystick drift. Sometimes it's intermittent, then other times it just happens all the time. Like you can't stop it from happening. But what do you do now in that instance? You go out and you get another Joy-Con, it seems, right? You're like, okay, well, there's not much I can do unless you want to take a shot at replacing it. Not everyone wants to, though. So the only thing you can do is either send it into Nintendo and deal with that, or if it's out of warranty, you buy another Joy-Con. Here's the issue, though, and the reason people are concerned, you don't do that with the Switch Lite, right? It seems that obviously everything is one piece, and it does not remove. It's not detachable. And from what is going around now, rumors and everything, it seems that the Switch Lite will be using the same analog stick as the regular Switch that we know now, that same unit, that same little piece, and that is not going to be fun for some people because it's already faulty in the current build. It's an issue from the factory, it seems, and I would like to assume that Nintendo will fix that in the Lite iteration. Maybe they've already had some kind of plan deployed to fix it at the factory level. Who knows? I actually took one apart here to kind of explain what the issue is, and I think it's fixable. I think they can fix it, and you know what? They might just silently revise it, and we will never know, right? Unless we take it back apart and check it out later on. But here's the thing about the Switch Lite. So I want to put you guys at a little bit at ease here. I don't think it's going to be the worst thing in the world to replace the joystick. I don't think you should have to, because I think it should just work, right? I think when a company sells a product, it should be high enough quality to where you don't have to think about these things. But let's say we get to that situation, and the one that generally tends to have issues is the left joystick, right? That's the way it is, because your character ends up running all over the place. I'm sure the right one can also run into issue, but the left one definitely. So let me just go over, for example, here's some Reddit posts. This one was one day ago with 26,000 upvotes saying, I know it's been said a billion times, but Nintendo really needs to address these defective Joy-Cons. It's been absolute radio silence, and I find it unacceptable. Nintendo really hasn't commented on it. That's a good point. These controllers, like they say, are $80. There's another one. This one was actually from 6 days ago with over 11,000 upvotes. Nintendo, fix your controllers. In fact, it's to the point now where if you go on the Reddit, there was a post one day ago that just says, hey guys, we get it, your Joy-Cons drift. Nintendo's not here, which is weird. Nintendo, I think, I imagine they have to at least glance at that subreddit. It has over 1 million people as members, and there are some obvious issues being aired out there. So I would assume that Nintendo at least glances at that, their social media team, but I don't know if they're basing decisions on the subreddit. Still though, it's a good spot for them to look as a company and say what's going on with the fan base right now, I would say. So if I took a look at the Switch, the Lite, this is actually from Best Buy. They had a nice little rendering of the front and the back. It's fairly large. And this is for the Pokemon one, which looks kind of cool. The first time I saw it, I thought it looked better than the second time, and the third time, something about these colors are starting to wear on me a little bit. I don't know if it's the weird clashing of the colors. I think the back looks awesome, right? The kind of the etching of the two legendary Pokemon in the game. But the more I look at like this like magenta and this like blue, I would have rather just been all one color, like all blue. All blue I think would have looked really good. But looking at the back here, if we zoom in, it looks like there are these pads almost, and that could also just be that the rendering doesn't have the tri-tip screws there, which I feel like it probably is. Easily strippable, by the way, so that's going to be fun. But looking around it, from what I can tell, these are either pads like the 3DS, which the 3DS has kind of the pads on the back that you have to like pop out for some of them. Easy to do with something like like some tweezers or a little pin or something, a little needle pin. That would pop those out of there. And if they do switch over to Phillips head, like the little Phillips head, I think those would be better to deal with there. So if not, you may end up having to deal with something like a tri-tip driver. The only other spot they might be hiding screws is either at the top, which I looked at some renderings, I don't think I saw any there either, or underneath this little door here for the micro SD card, because of course the current Switch has one hiding underneath the kickstand where that SD card is. Now, this piece will probably come off all at once, so it'll just basically rip off. It's probably clipped if they don't have any screws hiding or anything, and that won't be too bad as the 2DS XL is also clipped, at which time it'll pop off. I assume these back triggers, so ZR, ZL, are held on in some way with the spring closed, kind of like what they do with the current Joy-Con. And I have a strong feeling getting to this analog stick here is not going to be terrible. The only way it'll be bad is if this is one long piece that goes all the way down. However, which is similar to the current Joy-Con. However, they won't have a need to do that considering it's not going to be this small little piece. The reason that's there is to brace things like the battery, for example. And this, of course, won't have a battery in each side because it doesn't have Joy-Con controllers. So the good news is most likely behind this stick, it'll be free. And what I'm hoping is that it's similar to the 2DS XL, which if we look here, this is a nice little picture from iFixit. And I've opened the 2DS XL, I've opened the 3DS XL, the 3DS, the 2DS. Here's the good news. All of these handhelds that Nintendo has made with the Circle Pad, it is fairly easy to get to them. And trust me, I fixed a lot of them. The 3DS, the 3DS XL, the 2DS, they all seem to get Circle Pad issues because, of course, they're designed at that point for a younger audience, and they get beaten up and they take a beating, right? You use the Circle Pad more than anything. There are games where you sometimes use the D-pad, of course, but the Circle Pad is the main use for control, and it's not set up as well as something like the Joy-Con for continuous movement because it's like a slide. It's a whole thing. But removing it is very easy. Buying them, it's cheap, so I'm hoping it's a similar setup where once the back comes off, you don't have to do any, you don't have to play with this or anything. Generally, you can get to it pretty easily. So that's kind of what I'm hoping. I hope it's as easy as the regular 3DS because the original 3DS was very easy. The back comes off and bam, there is the control stick. Super easy. So I'm hoping that is the case here and this comes right out. If it's similar to the current Joy-Con without the extra stuff on top, we'll be able to change it out without too much issue. So there's a lot of concern around having to send it out. I don't think you're gonna have to do that, which is good. Well, it's also gonna depend on voiding a warranty. However, we've also had the right to repair put out now, right? The law that was passed or whatnot, or bill, to where we're allowed to technically open it and won't void the warranty. So my hope is that 4 screws come out, the backing pops off, and then we can look right at the analog stick. 2 or 3 screws pops that guy out, change it, and we're done. And it's like a $10 repair. But keep in mind, even if we can replace this, it's still not great based on what they're using. And that's the concern right now. They need to fix this analog stick from a factory level. The worst case scenario, I'm going to tell you what the worst case scenario about this is that they would do something crazy with this and they would solder it in, or they would use some different pinout or something, but the current rumor is it is using the same one. So the hope is that if we have to replace it, it's not a major headache. But let me know what you guys think about this situation. I know a lot of you are concerned, okay? But if you keep an eye out on the 20th, I should have a teardown up where we go through it, and I will specifically point out how hard it is to change that analog stick out, because I know a lot of you guys are concerned about it. We'll take a look at that, and I'll double check with my own analog stick to make sure it is compatible. We'll change the analog stick out that day. I'll order one from Amazon, we'll change it out, and we'll make sure everything works. That way, down the road, you can hopefully change it out if you have to, rather than send it out and the whole thing. The only issue I see is you'll be changing it out with gray sticks. So keep that in mind as well. Remember, this is like this one, for example, if you get this yellow is all white, you would then have one gray stick. You might want to change the other one out, make 2 gray sticks. Hopefully we'll get these type of analog sticks come out as well. Thanks guys for watching. Make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it. Dislike it if not, and I'll see you guys next time.